George Harrison's rise as a solo artist began with a pounding headache, one caused not by exhaustion, but by the Beatles themselves. By the time the Fab Four stepped into the studio to create Let It Be in 1969, the fractures within the group were already wide open. For over a year, tension had been brewing, and no one felt the pressure more than Harrison. Constantly overshadowed and micromanaged, he became the quiet Beatle who had finally had enough. After one particularly heated argument with Paul McCartney, Harrison snapped. He stormed out, effectively quitting the band, though only for a short while. When he returned home, his frustrations spilled out in the form of Wah Wah, a blistering track born from the suffocating atmosphere that had made his head throb with resentment. The cracks had started showing earlier, during the recording of the White Album in 1968. Harrison later described that period as dark and joyless. The energy in the studio had turned toxic, and the creative spark that once defined the Beatles was flickering out. Once the album was finished, the band took a break, and Harrison used that time to breathe again. He found new life, collaborating with artists like Jackie Lomax and reconnecting with Bob Dylan and the band in New York. The experience was liberating, a creative reset that made him believe things could still get better when he rejoined the Beatles. But the optimism didn't last. As he told Crawdaddy magazine, he had returned to England feeling inspired, only to be greeted by the same old cold tension as soon as the Let It Be sessions began. The winter atmosphere at Twickenham Studios, both literal and emotional, drained him. What was supposed to be a fresh start quickly became a rerun of misery. Michael Lindsay Hogg had been hired to film a documentary of their rehearsals and recording process, footage that would later become the Let It Be film. But instead of capturing harmony, the cameras documented a band imploding, bickering over concert plans, creative control, and personal grudges. Harrison found himself comparing the chaos with the freedom he'd enjoyed with Dylan and the band just months earlier. The contrast was brutal. Worse yet, McCartney's perfectionism had morphed into dominance. Harrison's own songs, many of which he'd written in New York, were met with indifference. He once admitted that he would have to endure 10 Lennon-McCartney tracks before the others even considered one of his. Years later, he likened that creative bottleneck to being artistically constipated. All Things Must Pass became the release, the flood that followed years of suppression. He confessed that he rarely received encouragement from his bandmates. Their occasional praise felt like they were doing him a favor. The tension finally reached breaking point during rehearsals for Two of Us. McCartney's constant direction pushed Harrison to the edge. In exasperation, he told him he'd play whatever was needed, or nothing at all, whichever would make him happiest. The sarcasm cut through the air like a knife. Later that day, during a lunch break on January 10th, 1969, Harrison calmly announced that he was leaving the band. John Lennon, barely lifting an eyebrow, asked when. Harrison's reply was immediate. He was done. He told them to find a replacement and joked that they could post an ad in NME. As he walked out, he reportedly muttered that he'd see them around the clubs, a line that sounded less like a farewell and more like a warning shot. That night, the anger turned into art. Sitting alone, Harrison channeled his headache and humiliation into Wah Wah. He later explained that the song was his reaction to the chaos of the Let It Be sessions, a sonic middle finger to the infighting, the noise and the pressure that had made him want to scream. The title itself symbolized the throbbing pain the band had caused him. In the song, Harrison addressed his bandmates directly, turning his disillusionment into melody. His lyrics spoke of betrayal, resentment, and reluctant nostalgia, a farewell to the people who had made him both a superstar and a prisoner. Wah Wah would later appear on All Things Must Pass, his monumental debut solo album, a triple record packed with songs he'd been forced to keep on the sidelines, while Lennon and McCartney ruled the creative throne. By the time the Beatles finally disbanded, Harrison had already moved on, and Wah Wah stood as both his revenge and his release.